ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is yours truly, the Lord Nelson. That is the big guy on the little show. This is my podcast, Live and Loud with the Lord on the CMS Network. And once again, I have another special guest, another cool, a spectacular individual. He's a music lover. He's my brother on the CMS Network of podcasts, man. And we just do what we do. He has great content. He's one of the best podcasters out there. And so we're going to get to know him a little bit better and just talk to him. But I'm going to let him, answer the questions, man. I'm not going to talk for so much. We're going to let him talk more, because we like to talk. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matt Hartnett. Yeah. Clap you up,
What's going on, Lord? Man, how you doing, bud?
Man, it's your world all day, baby.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say thanks, man. I just want to say a quick thank you for having me on. I'm really honored, man. I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Love, man. So I always like to start it off by asking two questions. First question is, where are you from?
I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens, New York. I live now just right outside of Oakland out here in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been out here about half my life now in California. I just spent half of my life in New York. So kind of bi-coastal guy.
Got you. So what was great about being from Queens, man?
Oh man, it was a great childhood growing up in Queens, man. New York City is a very different place, more than any other place I've been, to or lived in. Ever since I lived in California, I've lived up the coast, San Diego, LA, and now up here in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And but growing up, New York is such a blessing, man. Just learned a lot of life skills there. You know what I mean? It's such a dense place, and everyone's living on top of each other. Right. So, that's why you got a lot of people who are, it's all that fast paced stuff there. And, people a little, could be a little cranky because everyone's on top of them. You know what I mean? But yeah, just, obviously, man, I grew up with sports and music, man. Those are two great things about living in New York, obviously being from Queens, I grew up, man, at the height of it, right next to all those big, rappers, man. I lived in a town called Queens Village, which is right next to Hollis, and Hollis is obviously Run DMC.
Man.
Yeah. A lot of yeah. So yeah, man, and of course, just basketball was the sport down, in New York, man. So I grew up playing a lot of basketball and basketball and music, man. That was my life growing up there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, listen, he's still holding on to that accent. Most definitely, it's still there.
Still there.
Anyway, it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
So what or who got an East Coast dude to plant roots in the West?
I'll be honest with you. There was a couple of things. One was, I was working I was trying to work in the music business. Mm-hmm. My early 20s. I interned at Roadrunner Records, really? New York. Yeah, which was cool, man. When I realized I was there, I realized that most of the record labels and everything was out in LA. It was out in California. So I just wanted to change, man. Like I said, New York. I mean, it was great growing up, but I will say for I'm, like I said, obviously a big rock and metal guy. For rock and metal, it's really it wasn't the best place in the world. Okay. When I came out here to California, especially to LA. I was like, wow, this place is just music central. You know what I mean? It was just off the hook. People a little bit, kind of more open and friendlier, than back east. And so I visited one time and I was like, man, I gotta get out here. I gotta experience this a little bit, And then once you come out and you experience this weather, man, it's hard to go back. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's how I planted the roots out here in California.
I got you. Well, you're talking about music. So what do you love most about music, man?
Man, it's like, what do I don't love about it? It's, I mean, really just everything. It's, I love that there's so many different styles, no matter what kind of music you listen to, but, like it fits your mood, if some of them are feeling good and spry, listen to some upbeat stuff, Mm-hmm. I just, I guess as a kid, going through some changes as a youngster, I always relied on music to kind of get me through it, through some hard times and stuff. And, like everyone, so it's, like my dad, he was a drummer, growing up, he played in the band, so big music family I come from, I mean, my dad had a closet of like 1,000 vinyl records. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
really? Yeah.
Yeah, he was a huge record collector, and so yeah, I just grew up around it, man, and just it just became really in my life, especially after I realized with basketball, I could only go so far. I wasn't really, I'm only 6 feet. So, for basketball, that's small.
Right.
And, I realized, okay, I had my sport thing. Once I realized basketball was done, I just put all my focus into music, playing it,
Right.
and getting involved with the business. I started a record label down in Los Angeles. I had an independent record label for about 4 years. I put like 6 records, and yeah, so it's just it's all I think about. You know what I mean? If I'm not working and not with my family, I'm thinking about music.
I'm smiling because my wife is always, do you think about anything else other than music? Are you always going to just sing around the house and anything that happens? Are you going to make a song about it? Hey, we went under the tree. Under the tree.
There you go. Yeah.
I can't help it. It's just in me.
Yeah, man.
It's just in me, man. So what bands were your most favorite as a teen then?
Well, as a teen, it was interesting. I mean, let's see. So obviously, just growing up, my dad was a big, classic rock guy. The typical bands, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all those bands.
Gotcha.
And then I got, obviously, as a youngster, I got more into, the sort of some of that hair metal stuff as a youngster, the Motley Crue and the Def Leppard and all those. But when I was a teen, obviously, I was listening, like I said, a lot of, rap was big back then. So I was listening to rap. Still listening to metal back then, and I guess really once I listened to a lot of the hardcore stuff. So New York, that was really the big music there. That's where it was the urban music. It was hardcore, and so I grew up in the New York hardcore scene. And like I said, I loved a lot of the rap metal stuff as a teen, and band like Biohazard. That was like one of my favorite bands, of all time. Yeah. So and then got into just, I mean, that's the thing about me. I just love all types of rock and other music, so I'm not a genre snob.
No genre snob, that's right.
No genre snob. No way.
That's awesome. So if we took a spin in your whip right now, what would we be listening to? Right now, if we walked out to your car or your truck right now, what will we be listening to?
You'll be listening to, let's see, we got the band called Madball. They're a New York hardcore band. I'm just looking on my phone right here. I'm like looking at some of the last things I have played here, because I usually like to get my car. It's like, man, I got so much on here. I just go, all right, shuffle. You know what I mean? And I kind of
do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So them, I got who do we guess we got in here? We got the band Crowbot, which is a cool like blues rock band.
Yeah.
Fu Manchu, Downset. That was a great rap metal band.
Yeah. We actually, with my boys, No Power, No Crown, we did a cover of what's the song?
Anger.
Yeah. We did an Aftershocks. We did a cover
really?
of that, man, which turned out pretty well, man. It was pretty good.
I love that song, man. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you about what was the difference between the music scene in Cali and New York, but you already kind of answered that, man. So let's get into AFTERSHOCKS TV.
Okay.
So please tell us about the creation of your amazing podcast and how you linked up with Chris on the CMS Network.
Yeah. So about 3.5 years ago or so, I got a good friend of mine. His name is Bob Nalbandian. He's been in the business for years. He grew up with the guys from Metallica. He went to he grew up with them when they were like teens, and so he used to run a fanzine, back in the 80s when that was the big thing.
Right.
So he's a real big, he does documentaries. He's done about 7 documentaries by now on LA metal. He did a couple from up here in San Francisco. And so, Bob's just a great dude. So Bob had one of the first podcasts for metal back in the mid 2000s. Really? It was called Shockwave Skull Sessions. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was run through the Roadrunner Records website, because he used to run the Roadrunner Records office in LA for years. And so he did that, years ago. I loved it, and I wound up becoming good friends with him. And then, so I'm up here now in the Bay Area, and then he, hit me up. He's like, "Yo, I'm here in the Bay Area. I'm working on my new documentary." So we started hanging out, and I told him, I said, man, dude, you should get the Skull Sessions, back, man. You should put that back together. It's a great show. And he's like, yeah, people are asking for it. I'm thinking of it, but I'm busy with the documentary and stuff. I don't have time to do all the producing and all that editing and all that stuff. I said, well, man, I'll do that if you want, man.
Right.
I'll help you out. And so we decided, all right, let's get it back together. I was going to be on, I was on maybe every 3 or 4 episodes I did with him. And then I did all the artwork. I did all the, all the stuff for it, posting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that, so during it, at one point in time, Bob, he had some health issues, and a lot of times he was out of town for business. So he couldn't sometimes do an episode a week. So he started asking me, hey, why don't you just, why don't you do an episode you want to do? So I did one on my own one time, and it was good. And then he asked me to do another one time, and he said he wanted to get, Joshua Toomey on because he had been on Toomey's podcast.
Right.
And he knew that me and Toomey, I'm 46, so he knew me and Toomey were closer in age. Bob's like mid-50s.
Yeah.
So he said, hey, why don't you do one with him and get Chris on too? So I was like, okay, and I knew of Chris from the Classic Metal Show. I kind of started to listen to it a little bit around that time, and Chris was just funny and just Chris is one of a kind, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
he definitely is.
He is, man.
Oh,
Yes, and I always, I always enjoy listening to him. So the three of us did an episode, and we had a good time doing it.
Right.
And then afterwards, me and Chris just started, texting back and forth and talking about music, and we started realizing, we liked a lot of the same stuff. Even though we were both doing this classic metal podcast with these other guys, we were really, me especially, because I grew up mostly in the, more in the 90s and the 80s.
Right.
I had nothing really a lot of times to contribute to the classic metal podcast because I wasn't going to shows, watching these guys in the clubs.
Right.
So me and Chris were talking about, doing an episode for the Skull Sessions podcast about, either hardcore or the groove metal stuff from the 90s. So there was a slot open one time. Bob was like, hey, man, I can't do one this week. You want to do one? So me and Chris decided to do one together. And Chris is friends with the guys from the band Chimera. And so we got those guys on and we did one and we had a lot of fun. And then we were like, maybe we need to do more of these, know? So we were going to plan to do some more of them. Now, this was right when the pandemic hit when we did that. So right when that hit, my day job is I'm a teacher. So I was teaching now from home and I had all this free time being at home.
Right.
And so I was already sort of planning on doing Aftershocks by myself as an offshoot to Shockwave Skull Sessions to focus more on new bands and bands from the 90s and so forth.
Right.
And so, I was going to get like maybe 2 or 3 guys to do some episodes and alternate with them. That was my plan originally. And so I had Chris, I asked him to come on the first one I was doing. I said, hey, you want to do some of these with me? He said, yeah, absolutely. So we did the first episode of Aftershocks together and it turned out great. We had a great time. And then afterwards, he just texted me. He was like, hey, man, dude, if you need a partner, full time, man, I'm totally down to do it.
Right.
And man, I wasn't going to pass up that because
I feel
Chris, if Chris is going to want to be a partner, you don't say no to that.
That's right, exactly.
So yeah, man, that's how it started, and then I guess the rest is history.
Yes,
that's
indeed.
it. Yeah,
hey, but you're handling your business, man, and I like when you say like this is the very best metal show that there is. But I love the confidence. That's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to believe that.
Yeah, man. It is too. I put a lot of time. So does Chris. Obviously, he puts. He's a workaholic, and we just put a lot of time into it to try to be the best. Whether people like us is the best. That's it's all subjective. It's like music and everything, right?
Of course.
So we just want to be the best we can be and improve. It just is. We don't want to stop learning and improving. To me, it's always
that's right. Exactly. I'm with you there. So when I look at you guys, man, I pay attention because I watched the way you did something on ours, and thank you once again for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched how you did something. And so on one of the ones that I did, I was editing. I said, let me use that technique right there. That was really cool. I said, I'm going to use that right there. So it was just love, man.
Nice.
So, just like you said, man, you never stop learning, man. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
so,
man. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I learned that way too, man, just through listening and working with Chris. I can't tell you, when we started, I was still pretty raw, and just by doing so many interviews with him and taking mental notes on what he does and how he comes up with some of these questions, I was like, wow, man, I never even thought about something like that, So, yeah, I mean, between Chris and Bob, my old, partner with the other podcast, man, I was blessed to be with two of the best in the business, in my opinion. So, yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you. Now let's ask you a real question.
Sure.
So what is it about underground stoner doom and thrash metal that screams your name? Because this is something you love. So I want to know. I really want to know.
Sure. Yeah. Man, I guess it's with the stoner and doom stuff. It's interesting because, I think right around after like the early 2000s, I was listening to metal and rock, and a lot of it wasn't really, I wasn't sensing anything that was new and really was grabbing me anymore, Okay, yeah. So I went through I was listening to a lot of hardcore. I was doing my label. And after a while, hardcore's it's great stuff too, but it's also, lyrically, a lot of that stuff's real kind of like for young kids. You know what I mean? It's like, it's stuff I thought, about when I was a youngster, but, right. It's kind of angry, and, I'm not like this angry guy anymore. So, right. When I started listening to some of this stoner stuff, it just, I also started playing my instrument more and becoming a little bit better at it. And I started really getting into more, some of the like, listen to some of the stuff in the 70s, like the Black Sabbath oriented stuff,
Okay.
And I guess it's just I was slowing down, I was getting a little older. I'm like, all right, man, this hardcore stuff's great, but I can't be listening to this all the time anymore. Right. I'm not feeling it as much. So the stoner and doom stuff was a little slower, it was groovier. It was just at my pace. It was good. I'd be sitting there doing, whatever I'm doing at home, and I'd put it on, and it was great to have on the background. It just kind of, almost even, it made me feel like pumped up but relaxed at the same time. You know what I mean? Which I liked.
Yeah.
And and so I love that. And thrash, I just love thrash because, if I do listen to the heavy stuff, if I want to go work out when I go to the gym, or I want to just, I'm feeling fired up about something, man, I'm in the car going to work or something. Right. I love listening to thrash. It just kind of gets me moving. Some of the riffs, these thrash riffs, man, I love. And I love underground, man. I just love underground music.
Yeah.
Just because, I guess because obviously when I had my label, that was what I worked with, all these underground bands. I just love finding bands and then seeing these bands just blossom. You know what I mean? It's just something cool about that, and that's what I did with my label. I went to some inner cities too. And, one of my biggest bands on there was a band called Count Time out of LA, and they were from East LA. These guys were just, they never would have gotten discovered because no one would go in those places and look at scout bands, So me, I loved, like when I first heard Downset, and bands like that came from the inner city, and I guess because I grew up in New York too, which is, I always felt like that's where you're going to get some great music, but you got to go in there and you got to find that because, they don't have a lot of money. They can't promote themselves. They don't have money to do all that stuff.
It's real.
So that's why I love underground, man. To me, especially with a podcast, everybody's interviewing the same people. The guys from Judas Priest and Metallica, or whoever. I mean, everybody wants to interview the same guys. I'm like, that's boring, man. I'm going to interview other people.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you there.
Yeah, you do the same thing. You do the same thing on your show. Yeah, exactly. So
because I'm just like, I was telling Chris, I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do some other interesting people because there's a whole lot of interesting people out there, and I just wanted to bring something different. There's no doubt.
Absolutely.
Just like I told Chris, they have done it all. They've interviewed all those guys, And, I just want to bring something different, man. And, I pray that I'm able to do it just like you're doing also.
Yeah, you are, man. You're bringing some real good stuff, man.
I'm just having fun with it. I'm really having a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's about.
Sir. So if a person wanted to check out these genres, what 3 albums would you recommend for them to listen to that might help them digest? Possibly get the music like you do?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I would say with the stoner stuff, the first one to start with, because you'll hear a lot of bands sound like them, is the band Caius. Blues, Blues for the Red Sun is the record. That's their classic record. The second record I would say to listen to is a band called Fu Manchu. called Daredevil. That was one of the ones that got me into that style of music. And then I would say the third one to listen to would be a band. I would say the band called the Atomic Bitchwax is the name of the band. The first record. I know it's a funny name. But yeah, great band. That band's amazing. So those three, those are the stoner. I mean, Doom, I would say, Stoner and Doom are kind of related, but Doom, I would say, obviously, any Black Sabbath record, would be a Doom, since they're the originators of that music.
Yes, indeed.
The second band, I would say, for Doom, Typo Negative, because they play that goth.
Right.
You remember them, right? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
I would say they're a good goth Doom band. And then more recently, probably this band called Electric Wizard. They've been around for years. Okay. So those are the, and then for thrash, obviously thinking of underground new thrash bands, there's a lot out there. I'd say this one band called Chemicide. They're really good. Obviously, anything from the band Power Trip, who unfortunately, the singer died a couple of years ago. But they're a great thrash band. And I would say another one would be, if you go old school underground thrash, I'd say it's a band called Nuclear Assault. Any of those records. Yeah. So those would be it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, so when he says these, now you got to believe him. He's into this music most definitely. So I just wanted to ask that question, man, because I think there's a lot of people. Once again, no genre snobbing. There might be something that you can introduce to some people, man, just some new stuff. Because I know I'm going to go out and check out some of those that you just said also, most definitely. So that's love, man. This music is love, man. And if it's hot, it's hot, man. It's just what it is, man. I don't care what it is. If somebody playing a piccolo or something, if it's hot, it's hot. That's just the way I am.
Sure, man. Yeah.
What kind of music did your parents listen to? And do you ever find yourself playing this music and reminiscing about your youth?
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad was straight up classic rock. Like I said, the big ones. He also listened to a lot of that, like Woodstock folk stuff.
Okay.
He liked Linda Ronstadt and Dan Fogelberg. Yeah. So he had that's kind of, I think, where I got my taste from, and not just listening to one type of music. He listened to all different styles of rock and stuff. Yeah. My mom was interested. She was more like I guess in the 70s, early 80s, she liked the disco stuff, you know what I mean? Bee Gees and Donna Summer, I mean, that was the first stuff I remember listening to,
of course.
Those bands,
Yeah.
But yeah, so and do I reminisce, man? Absolutely. It's funny because for the longest time I put on, I hear that classic rock, man. I'd be like, nah, man, it's this old man music. It's my dad's stuff. I'm over this stuff, man. This is so whatever, but now, you get a little older, I hear certain things and it takes you takes you back. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually kind of liking this more now. Now I understand, I can appreciate some of that stuff more, 100%. More so than I used to. So yeah, I do. I definitely once in a while will put on some of that older stuff, or if I hear it, I definitely reminisce, man, all the time about that stuff. Which is great, right? That's what's great about music, man. It's a soundtrack of your life. So every time you hear a song, it always takes you back for the first time you heard it, and you remember exactly where you were.
It's a time machine.
Totally.
Exactly. And I really had to ask that question, man, because that means a lot to me, because I listened to so much music, and I just know the stuff that my mom and dad played. And what's funny? Okay, so I have 3 children. I have an older daughter, and then I have twins, a boy and a girl.
Okay.
So, man, my girls, they're my princesses. Of course, I wouldn't play things that were too crazy around them. But my son, it was just open season. No pun intended, it was open season. Put him in the vehicle and we're listening to everything. So sometimes you just look at me like, yo, dad is over here tripping hard. But I wanted them to understand. So what's funny is that I would play reggae, I would play rock, I play classical music, I play all kinds of things, whatever I was feeling at the moment. And they would really just look at me. So what's funny is that my oldest daughter and my son, they kind of think a lot just like my wife. They think like my wife. Okay. So they're just like, man, I'm glad I don't have to listen to that, whatever. But if we all get in the vehicle together, I'm going to put my music in and I'm just going to have a ball. But his twin sister, she gets it.
Really?
She gets it and she plays it. She'll say like, Dad, she'll call me. She's like, Dad, this song was here. And, in Atlanta, she was like, Dad, they're playing this song at this restaurant or whatever like that. And then I was just like, yeah. She was like, I remember. All my son does is like, man, you used to kill me with all that reggae music. You used to play all that dance hall music, man. He said, that's why I hate it. I was like, what? What are you talking about? But then when they hear the stuff, they remember it. They remember those times and stuff. And that's what's really important about it, man. I just think it's great, man. I mean, I can't do without music, man. I need it, man. And I know, I guess you feel the same way, man. It's an integral part of what we do and how much we love it, man. So absolutely. Talk to me about this room that I see behind you, man.
Well, this is my little, I guess if you want to call it a studio / man cave / office or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, man. No, I've got like even stuff you can't see over here. I just got a bunch of, I basically took or bought, I should say, posters and framed them from really the bands that really, meant a lot to me growing up. Right. That got me through some of the hard times that I was going through back in the day. And that still mean a lot to me today. So yeah, it's just sort of like my little, I come in here, it's just like my spiritual little heaven with music on. And then when I get involved with all the podcast stuff and all the other stuff we're doing with the network, it's just, I'm blessed beyond belief that I've got a wife that obviously allows me to do this. You know what I mean? Yes, she was like, yeah, you could take a room in the house. I mean, oh, you ain't kidding me. My wife's the best, man. I mean, so many people are like, dude, how did your wife agree to do that? I was like, because she knows, from when we met, like this was important to me and this is what I wanted to do, and she, and she supports it 100%. And yeah, so I got to thank her first and foremost. But so it's just my little, like I said, I got all my stuff here, my vinyl record player and computers. It's a laboratory in here, record music in here. I got all my recording stuff. And so.
Same thing I do. So I'm taking it over. Like I told my wife, she was like, no, I said, babe, come on, man. I said, all the kids have gone to college and graduated. They're gone. I mean,
you did your job.
Yeah. I was like, can I have a little something? You know what I'm saying? So I started doing stuff. She was just like, nah, you got to change this. I was like, babe, just let me do what I'm doing. Just let me enjoy me. Get out, please. So as you see the posters and stuff I have with, I got this one. I love her. She did this when I first got with Stuck Mojo.
Wow, man. I was wondering where that came from. That's
she did that when I first got with Stuck Mojo, man. Nice. I'm an emotional person. I'm sensitive. I cried so badly, man. She had this big party for me before we had a show here in Columbia where I live. And I was just like, man, this is crazy, man. I didn't know what was going on, but she had a big surprise party for me, man. She always surprised me every year. We've been together for a very long time. But and then the other ones back there, Scott Bowling. Have you been on Scott's show?
I know. I know that. I've watched him though. Yeah.
So Scott, man, amazing guy. Just all the respect in the world of Scott. He's a fantastic show. He's doing this thing, on a higher level. He's really Scott is on point. Hey, salute to Scott Bowling, man. Good company. Great show. But so these are the ones when I was on his show that he had for me when he was talking about the albums and stuff.
That's awesome, man.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so he was just like, hey, do you? I was like, yes, I do. Because all I do is like, I know where I'm going to put him. I know, I know what's about to happen, man. So man.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I saw the one he did with Bones, man. That was like from about 5 years ago or so. Yeah. And he did the same thing. He had that. I remember he gave him the record and that was super cool. Super cool.
Yeah. So I'm just like I was telling you guys, man. Bones, stop playing, man. Whenever I get him on the show, I know we're gonna have a good time.
I know, man. I mean, I can't wait for that, man.
We're gonna have a good time, and I'm gonna make sure it's gonna be good. But I had Kurt Taylor. I just interviewed Kurt Taylor, who played with them in Bones.
Yeah, okay.
From Primer 55 also. So I was laughing with Kurt. I said, Kurt, man. I said, because he asked me, he said, man, when you gonna get Bones on there? I said, same thing I'm telling you guys. I said, man, I don't know what he's doing, man, but he's up in Wisconsin doing whatever he's doing. And I hit him up and I'm like, text him, and just like, yo, man, what are we doing? And I was like, you gotta let me know what's going on, man. Please let me know what's going on. I said, but I only asked people like twice. But I said, I might ask him, 8, 9, 10 times, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Yeah, so, you guys go back a long time. Like you said, right?
Rich Ward too. Rich Ward, Sean Delson, all of them, man. I said, you guys big time with me right now, but it's all love. I said, it's all
man.
love.
More mojo the better, man.
Hey, man, listen, I just tell him, don't let me catch him at a picnic or in the shower, man. I'm do so bad to him. But those my guys, man. Those my guys.
Hell yeah.
Last question I'm gonna ask you, man.
Sure, bro.
Podcast or radio?
Oh man, when you say radio, do you mean like commercial radio?
Commercial? No, commercial radio or like serious, all of it. What's you know?
I would go, I would go podcast,
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, yeah.
I definitely was, I was really into Sirius XM for a while. I love Jose Megan. I think he's great.
Jose, yeah,
Right. Good,
yeah.
real, a great ambassador for
He's
rock and
definitely that
metal.
guy. Yes, yes,
He is. Yeah. And so I was a big fan of him and listened to that for a while. But, and like I said, I would, listen to that driving, to work, and
Right.
it was cool. But once again, I think with podcasts, and just in general, I guess, because it's all on demand, right? I mean, we've got the choice. I mean, I do like popping on a radio. I mean, as you know, we got our Seismic Sounds radio. Same thing, just a random mix of stuff, which is cool. But
Yeah.
when it comes to talk, podcast is where it's at. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of podcasts. I mean, obviously, I think there's the good thing, I think what's happened since the pandemic, it just gave people a lot of time. There was nothing really else going on. So I think everybody just started to like, you know what, man, let me start a podcast. And then all of a sudden we had just a huge influx of podcasts that came out, almost to the point where I couldn't keep up. There was so many, but now you're seeing the ones who are really going to be the ones that last a long time, that are in it for the long haul. They're still around. They don't, a lot of podcasts do like 5 or 10, and then they're like, oh, this is kind of tougher than I thought. And they maybe stop. But yeah, I'm definitely podcast all the way. What about you? You're a podcast or radio guy?
Man, listen, I love you so much, but I'm having so much fun with this podcast, man. It's just it's on my mind a lot. And of course, working on the new project, man, Matt Acevedo and myself.
Yeah,
so, man,
that's right.
I'm having so much fun with this podcast, man. I can't even lie to you. So young man, let's give everybody your information, man, so they can get with you. And of course, CMS Network all day, every day, and a day.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Just everyone can go if they want to check out the latest episodes of Aftershocks. Just AFTERSHOCKS.tv.com. We've also got, like I said, it's coming out real soon, probably within the next couple of weeks. So maybe by the time this airs, it'll be up already. Seismic Sounds. It's seismic-sounds.com. And on that's going to be, we've got the radio station on there, just spinning 24/7. Hard rock, metal stuff, a lot of that stoner, doom, and thrash stuff. We've got also we're doing some journalism on there. That's one of the things we really love about the CMS network that we're trying to really do, is we're going back to a lot of that old school journalism. You know what I mean? Like we want to keep it about music. Everything now, you go to a lot of these metal sites, for news, and it's just all about, clickbait and politics and everything, man. And it's just so one thing we always say, me and Chris, is just no politics. We refuse to talk about it because it's so divisive, right? Music's supposed to bring people together. Exactly. And that's let's get back to talking to these bands and stuff about their music, not about what they believe in politically, man. So so Seismic Sounds coming out. So we're doing articles, we're doing reviews, we're doing, just old school journalism. And let's see. Of course, they can always go to all our social media pages. We got one now I just started one up for Aftershocks TV. So just go to Aftershocks TV. Of course, CMS Network on there as well. Same with Facebook and Twitter, CMS Network. And that's obviously, they could find everything in the same place they find Live and Loud with the Lord, CMSnetwork.com.
Yes, indeed, man. Well, look, I just want to tell you, man, I'm honored to have you. And
I'm honored to be on here, man.
Yeah. And I know I'm talking to you a little bit later off this. I want to talk to you about this record label thing, man, because I'm trying to figure out some things right here, what I'm going to do. I got my little LLC over here, man. But I just want to make sure everything's love. But we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is yours truly, the Lord Nelson, that is, with the great Matt Hartnett from AFTERSHOCKS TV. He's that guy, ladies and gentlemen. Do not sleep on this dude at all, man. You got to go out there and check out his podcast. And listen, CMS Network, we're just going to bring great content. We're going to bring great content, man. That's always is what we do. Yes,
absolutely.
Indeed. So once again, man, thank you, my brother. Thank you. And
Lord,
this
thank
is
you, Lord.
Live and Loud with the Lord Nelson, that is. All right, man. Be good.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, dude. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Definitely.